And then on Sunday, he will be doing this sideline reporting for the Buccaneers broadcast as the Bucs take on the Eagles. And that, of course, is our good friend TJ Rives, who joins the program right now. TJ, Zach, and Mike here on Temple's campus. Thanks for a few minutes, and how are you?
It's always good to be on with you boys. And, yeah, we're going to get to have a lot of fun at Lincoln Financial Field 2 days in a row, at least so we think. I mean, the Temple-Memphis game should be exciting, and then hey, Buccaneer-Eagle game with playoff implications at the moment for both teams. So some very interesting football coming up.
No doubt about that. And it's actually pathetic that this is a possibility of a playoff implication game in the NFL, just how poorly these teams have played. But we played you that Jameis Winston audio clip, and it's surprising to me to see a rookie do that, because usually in the locker room after the game, you have vets speak. You're around Jameis a lot. What kind of leader is he?
Well, it's interesting, and you bring up a good point that a lot of times rookies will not step to the fore and do that, but that's the kind of guy that he is. He's kind of taken this franchise, at least on the offensive side, taking a hold of it, and that was some raw emotion. And let's be honest now about the end of the Bucs game. He did not play well. He threw a costly interception with about 7 minutes to go in the game, 8 minutes to go in the game, with the Buccaneers in field goal range down 7-3 or down 6-3 to the tie the game with a field goal. To interception. They get the ball back. They go on that drive at the end of the game where they're inside the 1 yard line, and just a crazy play, guys, where he's leaping on 3rd and goal from the 1. Did he get in or not? We don't know. The ball is loose. I'm down there on the sideline. It didn't look live like he fumbled before he got in. It looked live like he got in. The ball is loose. The Cowboys recover it. They think they basically won the game with 55 seconds left. Instead, there's a flag also down on the play. They review the play and determine that he fumbled. It's not a touchdown. They now also say there's a penalty on the Cowboys, and so that gives the ball to the Bucs back at the half-yard line, and then Jameis eventually on the next play runs it in on a bootleg for a touchdown. So my point is he got a big shot at redemption there because of that penalty and made the most of it, and they hung on to win the game, but that could have been a game, coulda, shoulda, woulda, where he was the GOAT. Instead, he's the hero, and you heard how animated he was in the Buccaneer locker room.
So let me just take this a step further with Jameis Winston. He really hasn't turned the football over that much in the past month, minus that game up against the Cowboys where he threw those 2 interceptions. How would you evaluate his play up until this point in his rookie season so far?
He is much improved over the course of the last 5 games. And you're right, he had not made mistakes. He had played it basically error-free football for the previous 4 games until last week. Earlier this year he played a game against Carolina where he had 5 turnovers himself, 4 interceptions and a fumble. So, look, he's got poise. He's got leadership. He is by no means, Zach and Mike, he's by no means a finished product. But you see signs in terms of poise, in terms of comfort in the pocket and making the right decision. Time and again, changing the play, loud crowd, loud environment. I mean, it's going to be raucous at the Link. We know that. But this guy doesn't get rattled by the loud crowd on changing the play, getting into a new play with 3 on the play clock or 2 on the play clock and still get the snap off. So he's shown tremendous composure so far, and those kind of things right now have Buccaneer fans excited.
I got a chance to interview Jameis. I cover the Heisman each year, so I got a chance to interview him the day before he won the Heisman and then that night when he won the Heisman. And a lot of questions about Jameis was about his maturity because he had so many ugly off-the-field situations in college. You're around this guy a lot more than we are. Where's his maturity at right now for a rookie quarterback in this league?
I think he's grown up, and you have to realize at some point I am now an adult. They've picked me number 1. I'm essentially the guy that's on all the billboards and the TV ads all over town. That they have entrusted me essentially as the face of the franchise. And at some point, you've got to show maturity. You've got to grow up. And I think that he has done that. And the team has begun to rally around him because of that. It is a situation where the Bucs needed some leadership. They needed some spark on offense. And he has so far, we're 9 games in. It's not a finished product. I said that before. I'll say it again probably before the end of the interview. It's not a finished product with him, but right now things are pointing up. And Jameis has been a model citizen here and has done tremendous things in the community so far for the team. So you like seeing all of those things right now with your young rookie quarterback.
We're talking to the sideline reporter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, TJ Rives. And again, as you mentioned, just kind of a win's a win, and it doesn't matter how you get it done. It was a low-scoring affair last Sunday where Tampa Bay was able to beat Dallas. Is that due to a strong front seven of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or is that just because this Cowboys offense is so depleted?
I think it was a little bit. Now, keep a couple things in mind. The Cowboys had their whole offensive line intact, and it's a really good offensive line. Darren McFadden has been running the ball really well the previous couple of games, including in the game against the Eagles in the Sunday night game. He got nothing against the Bucs for the most part. 32 yards, 17 carries. So they did a great job defensively of stopping the run. And look, Matt Castle is not Tony Romo. We know this. And Romo's about to be activated, and we'll see how quickly, if he can, get Dallas back in the win column and get them potentially in the playoff picture. And the comical part, the Cowboys have lost 7 games in a row, and they're not out of it in the NFC East. Not yet. So if Romo can come in and win a game or two immediately, they're suddenly back in the conversation, at least they think. So we'll see. But Dallas still had Des Bryant. They had they had Jason Witten in this game on Sunday, and the Bucs defense did a good enough job of keeping them out of the end zone, including at the very end when Bradley McDougald made that interception at the very end of the game when Castle heaved it up to the end zone. Huge play for the Buccaneers to get that win. It does not matter that it was ugly at times. It doesn't matter that it was only 10-6. It only matters, did you win?
Now, as you mentioned, this isn't a finished product, so there's a ton of fine-tuning that still needs to happen in Tampa Bay. But for all the positives that Mike Evans brings to this Bucs lineup, as he is a deep threat option, he also drops a ton of balls on the year, one of the league leaders in that category, which is very unfortunate. Is that just because Jameis isn't putting it in his breadbasket, or to some degree does Mike Evans just have butterfingers?
In the game with the Giants, it was more so on him. And in that game, it was bizarre, guys. That's the only word that I can use to describe it, because he was so good at the beginning of the game. He made a couple of great catches at the beginning of the game, including a catch and run of about 65 yards or so. Then later in the game, he had a couple of drops, but Dirk Cutter, the new offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers, first-year guy, he had been the offensive coordinator in Atlanta and also Jacksonville. Dirk Cutter's going right back to Mike Evans, and Mike Evans caught a key third down. And then he had another drop a little later on, and you're thinking, oh, here we go again. And then they have another key moment, another key third down, and Evans comes up with a catch. Then you look at Sunday against the Cowboys. There were a couple of spectacular Mike Evans catches. The guy has got all the tools. He's got incredibly long arms, reach, height and reach. One of the things, if there's a knock right now on Jameis Winston, is get the ball out in front of Mike Evans, get it up in the air, and let him go get it, as much as these 10-yard crawl routes, these comeback routes, and firing it at him. Go down the field to him. Let him do what he does best, outfight defenders with the ball up high. And the Eagles better be ready for that Sunday, because Dallas, he not only had 2 or 3 huge catches on Sunday in big situations, but Dallas had 4 different penalties trying to cover Mike Evans that gave the Bucs an automatic first down, either for defensive holding or pass interference. Basically 7 different times in a key moment, Mike Evans got a first down either by catch or penalty. Bucs will take that on Sunday, absolutely.
So let me just set you the scenario here in Philadelphia as we're talking to TJ Rives, who joins us right now. He's the Buccaneers sideline reporter and will be doing the play-by-play for Temple and Memphis this Saturday at the Link. So in the offseason, a lot of people were confused by what Chip Kelly was doing. And then right before the season, a lot of people had high expectations because they kind of liked the roster that he put together. I've always been someone that I've never understood what Chip did in the offseason, and I wasn't a big fan of who he selected at the quarterback. Now a lot of fans are jumping off the Chip ship, and they think he's arrogant, they think he's stubborn, and they don't think he's a very good coach. My personal assessment of Chip, TJ, is I think he's a good coach, but a not-so-good GM. I don't think he's a great coach by any stretch, as he clearly has his deficiencies, but I think the GM department he's really struggled in on his first year at the job in that role. You've worked nationally for a bunch of years. How do you perceive Chip Kelly? Because you've seen a lot of coaches make that jump from the college ranks to the pro level.
Well, it's a great question. Again, I'm not privy to how much input others are giving him on certain players and how much final say-so he really has on what they're doing. I mean, only the Eagles themselves would admit to that, or Chip Kelly would admit to that. I mean, clearly he's had a lot of success in the 2 years previous to this, including the playoffs his first year and narrowly missing out on the playoffs last year. I will agree. Sam Bradford has been a guy that has been injury prone. That's just a fact. It was very interesting that he thought at the start of this season, I will make a go of it with Sam Bradford, and made the trade. Fascinating on the other end of the trade that Nick Foles is now already on the bench 9 games into the St. Louis Rams season, for what it's worth on the part that the Eagles got rid of. In terms of other moves where they trade LaShawn McCoy to the Bills and they signed DeMarco Murray, clearly that's been a disappointment. You guys could speak more to this, though. How much of that is the offensive line and not being able to open up holes? How much of it is on DeMarco Murray once you acquire him to be able to be the running back that we saw in Dallas the last couple of years? I mean, I believe he was counting on DeMarco Murray big time to have huge numbers and huge success, and instead, to this point, it's been the exact opposite. It's been one of the biggest disappointments of the season in terms of free agency in the NFL. So, I would also say, too, you've still got 7 games left in your season, and don't count Chip Kelly out as a motivator and as an X and O guy with the personnel that he has, and that would start Sunday with the Bucs.
So far, the Eagles are 1-2 against the NFC South on the year. They one win coming against the New Orleans Saints. What can the Bucs learn from those 3 games? Because they face those 3 opponents. What can they pick apart from those 3 other NFC South games that the Eagles have already played in?
Well, one thing we know for sure, the Saints defense has been god-awful, and the Redskins finally drove the stake into the heart of Rob Ryan, figuratively, with that performance last week at FedEx Field. So, good on the Eagles that they were able to put it on the Saints and get the victory. But, in this case, Carolina's really good. I saw them at field level, obviously, around the same time that they were playing the Eagles. We'll see them again, the Buccaneers now, I'm talking about, in December. They're a team that does not beat themselves, very solid on defense. Luke Kuechly, a fantastic linebacker. Cam Newton is the guy that makes the offense go. They got a good mix of running backs. That's a tough team. So Buccaneers aren't going to play really that same style. They're a little more wide open with what they play. Maybe not as good as Carolina right now this season on defense, although the Buccaneers have fantastic defensive tackle in Gerald McCoy, tremendous Pro Bowl caliber linebacker in Levante David. Those guys need to play at a high level down the stretch of the season for the Bucs to have hope. And Levante David had a tremendous game last week. He had 11 tackles, had a sack, had a tackle for loss, had another key moment where he deflected a ball that could have been intercepted and maybe a pick 6 in that. So Levante David played a huge game against the Cowboys by any standard. So Bucs will need their best defensive players to play well. But I don't know how much you can learn from the other NFC South opponents to help the Eagles, to answer your question.
When I take a look at the Eagles' remaining schedule, there's really not a single game where you go in and you say, especially after last week, oh my God, it's a slam dunk victory. I think a lot of these games are going to be close and they're going to be dogfights all the way to the end in the fourth quarter. Most likely Sanchez is going to play this week at the quarterback position. And last week you saw what you get out of Mark Sanchez. He's a guy that could put you in a position to win. He threw the game-winning touchdown pass and then it was negated by a penalty by Raleigh Cooper. Miles Austin couldn't get a second foot down, and then eventually he has that inevitable Mark Sanchez turnover at the end of the game, which is inexcusable, but one that does happen with the player that Mark Sanchez is. I guess what I'm asking is, how big of a drop-off is it really from Sam Bradford to Mark Sanchez?
Well, Sanchez has played in huge games previously with the Jets, including in the playoffs and the AFC Championship game twice. So he's got experience, but by the same token, as you just mentioned, he has been turnover prone, and the Buccaneers are going to focus on taking the ball away, on being able to get interceptions, pressure him, and that's going to be one of the keys to this game. When the Buccaneers have gotten their victories, they've been positive in the turnover ratio. In the Falcon win 3 weeks ago, they were +4 takeaways, four turnovers in their favor, zero giveaways against the Atlanta Falcons. So that's something the Bucs want to do, and if Sanchez is erratic and throwing interceptions, that is big-time advantage Buccaneers for sure.